Namaste and welcome back to another episode of the Sapient. Today we have Tammy on the episode talking about few things. So first of all, welcome Tammy. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me, and I am doing fantastic.
Thank you so much for being here. And where are you based out of?
I'm based out of Navarre Beach, Florida.
Yeah, so sunny states.
Yeah, I'm a new transplant. I just moved about a year and a half ago from California, so I'm kind of
Hmm.
still a true blue Cali girl, but Navarre Beach, Florida is a beautiful other side of the U.S.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Were you like tired of paying higher taxes?
Yeah, that was one of the reasons. There was a myriad of them, but that was one of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is weird, right, how people operate, but there are very few people who can do what you did, right? That is move states, because the language might be same, but culture is different, people are different.
Definitely. I pack I did something really neat when I moved. I had been living on 20 acres. As a
Hmm.
single mom, I had a home on the same acreage as with my parents. And so when my
Hmm.
mom was going to move, I was going to move also, but I wasn't quite ready to move. I hadn't had that intuitional like
Hmm.
go and where I'm going to go. So I told everybody. They said, "Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go?" And I said, "You know what? When you see me go, you will know it was on faith because I'm not going until I just feel it in the heart." So I moved a trailer on my friend's 5 acres, and I lived in a trailer until I had that inspirational day, which came last year. So now here I landed
Hmm.
in Navarre Beach, Florida.
Yeah, what's your opinion about the flyover states?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
What's your opinion, or what is your thought process about like the flyover states, like the Midwest and the central part of America?
Oh, I love them. I have a son that lives in Montana, and well, I have one that lives in Missouri. That's probably more of the central, but
Hmm.
and I have a daughter that lives in Missouri. So they're fun, but I'm just really a coast girl. I love the beach. It's kind of my happy place. But
Hmm.
I love Central too. I think every place
God.
has its unique culture and its unique,
Mhm.
way about it. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. So can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your life journey?
sure. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I moved to California when I was 5 years old.
Hmm.
And I was raised in a Christian background, very strong religious family. And I was kind of raised with the idea that my biggest goal in life was to get married and have children. Because the background of the religion I was raised in really thought women's place is in the home raising children. And
Hmm.
however, I did have strong parents who encouraged me to get an education. I got a degree in fashion merchandising, moved out to Southern California, worked for Guess as a fashion merchandiser, and
Hmm.
then I embarked into being self-employed when I became a single mom. And
Hmm.
like I mentioned, I had a home on my parents' 20 acres because I was raising 6 kids as a single mom. So
Hmm.
I have 5 boys and one daughter. And
Hmm.
yeah, so then and then after that, just I kind of had I kind of collected my tools to lead me to what I believe is living my dharma, my life purpose right now.
Hmm.
And so, part of that was, of course, living through the hard times, the times that have to surrender and really grow and evolve, which divorce will do that to you, and becoming a single mom will do that to you. Um, and I went to work for the airlines part time, working nights, boarding planes to get benefits and to be able to
Hmm.
continue traveling. And And then I had a very traumatic accident, and I'd say that was my real huge turning point in life. It was my
Hmm.
180-degree turn, because that took me from being a passionate gal who loved to rollerblade and surf in the ocean and, hike in the mountains, ski in the snow and snowboard, and you name it, I did it. And all of a sudden I found myself living in an electric scooter and couldn't walk more than 10 steps. So really,
Hmm.
really took me to my knees.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, if you look at it as a graph, right? It has so many ups and downs, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah. But my question is, where did you learn the most?
Oh, well, initially I would say I learned the most about my inner self through the accident, because I had no choice but to go within, nowhere else to
Hmm.
go. But after I went within and started to begin my journey of forgiving others and releasing the trauma from people I thought had wronged me, or areas
Hmm.
I gave other people power, then I think as I look back, I learned the most about life from the journey backwards. After I went within, I began forgiving everyone, and I started to see life from a different spectacles. So, so then from that perspective, I think I learned a lot from um, just understanding the difference between how I was raised in religion, and understanding what I learned once I began to understand the I am empowerment within, and trying to uh, decode that and figure out how to embrace this new version of me who believed the empowerment was within me, not outside of me, which is what I felt religion had taught me. And then I also learned a lot through divorce and through, just becoming a single mom. I learned that that was my path to find my own empowerment. And so I began to embrace my obstacles and see them more as it was there to serve me versus it was there to hurt me. So,
Hmm. Got it. So, what was your like biggest learning in terms of, when anybody hits a rock bottom, right? Um, what do you think is the first few things that people will learn just because of the scenario that they are in?
um, you mean in the state of rock bottom? In that state?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, when they're going through that particular, lower graph of their life.
Well, in that state of rock bottom, I think a person has two choices: to look for answers outside of them, which some would turn to drugs, some turn to alcohol, some turn to relationships, the many things, or turning to going inward and dropping to your knees and trying to find the power within. There's not really another place to go at rock bottom than those two options. So, I had a real traumatic experience when I had my divorce that caused me to kind of look on the external, say, religion will help me. I'll do it right this time. I did it. I blamed myself. This is what I did wrong. I
Hmm.
shouldn't have married this person, or I shouldn't have done this in the marriage, and I just found all these faults within myself. And then I started to find the answers in religion, or in, maybe I'll meet another man and I'll do it perfect this time.
Hmm.
And then with my accident, I had no choice. I finally got to this surrendered state of
Hmm.
no more answers out there. I'd been to all the doctors, I'd been to all the specialists. They were all giving me the same answer. And it was just at this point of dropping to my knees and saying, take me or heal me. There's something there. There's got to be. Life has to be bigger
Mhm.
than this is it. After all I've been through in my life, all I've learned, who I've been,
Mhm.
I have this beautiful family. This can't be it. And so it's like, get me out of here if it is, take me, or heal me if it isn't. There's got to be something more powerful. And
Mhm.
I kind of call that a heart, moving into the heart, getting into heart cohesion and embracing. Once we give up our free will and we choose to go within and say, I'm ready. I'm ready for finding out who I truly, authentically am. Then the higher power comes in, that I am. Some call it God, some call it higher soul, some call it oversoul, some call it the universe. Whatever you call it, it doesn't matter. There is a higher power that
Mhm.
will just magically start to bring you information through people, experiences, books, podcasts, whatever way is the most impactful way for you, the answers will come. And if you can just stay in that surrendered state and trust that the answers will come, they will come.
Got it. Why do you think people give up on becoming better when they hit bad times?
Well, I I don't think they know another choice. And I also think they're coming from a trauma base. Heaven and hell is within us. We
Mhm.
we have lower chakras below our heart where all of our trauma in blocks are. All the trauma we've absorbed from others, all the trauma we've
Mhm.
absorbed in life. And once you can move past your heart and start to get to that gateway of heaven, heaven is it within you. And
Mhm.
so I think a lot of people who give up are still reacting from the trauma, and that's all they know. And so they just react too quickly, and they just
Mhm.
instead of figuring out how to let go of the trauma and connect, start to declutter the cord to that higher state of mind. Instead
Mhm.
of doing that, they just they kind of they take a loop, and they loop back to um uh, to answers of churning to something outside of them.
Mhm. Do you think seeking positivity in a you know negative situation also kind of harms them?
Oh, that is such a good question, because I don't really like the whole woo woo. I don't think
Mhm.
spirituality and this what I talk about with when I talk about energy healing or energy. I don't think it's all just spirituality, like the woo woo magical. It's also science based. And
Mhm.
so I think that, you know, um, I forgot the question now. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
I know where I was going.
So yeah. So my question was, um, do you think that when people seek positivity in a negative situation, do you think that harms them?
So I don't think positivity can harm you, but where I was going with that, whereas leading, is that I think sometimes we think, oh, I can do a few positive affirmations, or maybe I can just think positive for a few minutes. And you think that's going to change the road. And it really is much deeper than that. It is, it's not harder. It's just deeper. There's a difference. So
Mhm.
it's kind of one of those that, yes, the positivity mindset can begin the baby steps towards
Mhm.
going into more of a positive state of mind,
Mhm.
but just doing it, just here and there, for a few positive affirmations. It's always great, but
Hmm.
it's not going to change habits that have been formulating for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think, or um, like, if people tapped into their natural instincts when they're in trouble, right?
Hmm.
Do you feel it would be better for them instead of pushing positivity where it doesn't fit?
What clarify natural instincts for me? Clarify what you.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's more of a gut feeling, right? I mean, people would be in a situation in their life where they have to do something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it might not be something that they like, or they might be passionate about, but it needs to be done,
Well, I
right?
will.
And then,
Mhm.
yeah,
I will say.
and then
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
yeah,
You go.
you go ahead.
Clarify. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's like, you might not like it, but it's your instinct that says, you got to keep doing this, right? And then people give into this fake positivity where they are like, you know this is not my passion, I'm not going to do it, and that puts them even further into the pits.
if they're being if they're not being themselves, if they're not being authentic, yes, they're gonna it won't feel natural, it won't feel like a gut instinct. If they listen to something and they said, okay, I heard that singing is going to help me be positive, so they start
Yeah.
singing, but
Hmm.
that's not authentically them. Then the singing is going to take them to a lower state, because at some
Yeah.
point the mind is going to take over and say, why are you singing? You know you're a terrible singer, and it start this whole trajectory
Hmm.
of bringing them further down, and then they will turn to vices. However, if they can stop and tap into who they were, maybe as a child or as a young adult, before fear started
Hmm.
to take over. Fear starts to take over when we start embarking on our own personal journey as an adult, and we
Hmm.
don't make it, so if they can tap in to what they always loved, they'll tap into a part of them that they can begin to start acting on their most excitement, because that is your secret. Your secret sauce is if you can live in every now moment and be in the whatever is your greatest excitement at that time, then you will start to heal. You'll start to find joy. You'll start to
Hmm.
connect to it again. So,
Got it.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Do you also feel like, um, people have, I would say, more um, freedom, right, of thinking when they have experienced more difficulties in their life?
Um, I think this is what you mean by that question. So our computers are created off our brains. So a computer has a program in it. And as we have fears, and as we have unaccomplishments, sadness, worries, we start the body starts to communicate with the brain, and literally the neurons make a network and runs a program for this person. So then their reaction tends to be off of that program, because it's just what happens. The same as you turn on your computer, whatever you programmed your computer to do, it's going to do. Our body works off the programs that we have inserted. Now, however, we have the ability to let those neurons move and shift into a new program. For example, let's say a person has been very unhealthy, gained a lot of weight, hasn't ate well. they have a program in their brain, and they usually wake up in the morning and they run that program. Maybe they grab their phone, maybe they do something in bed in the morning, or they don't run to the gym like John, who's been working out every morning for the past 10 years. He has a program. I get up, I go to the gym. So this person, if they want to lose weight and they want to get healthy, they have to understand that when they start taking those baby steps and they start going to the gym, or they start going and doing wall yoga or whatever, wall Pilates, when they start doing changes, what happens literally, if you could take a scan of their brain, is the neurons start to move and find other neurons. And every day that they keep that promise to themselves, they're literally taking out that program of laying in the bed in the morning, and the neurons are starting to create a program that they work out. But you have to get past the mind. So that's the tricky part. And this is why a lot of programs say to do something for 30 days, and don't quit, do it every day for 30 days, because you've just created a new program. Within 30 days your program is starting to set in. And so if they start to, after about 2 or 3 days, their body will start to hurt now, because they're doing something new, they're working new muscles. And so the brain's going to start really trying to trick them. Oh, you've done so good. You should stay in bed this morning. You shouldn't get up and go work out. Why are we doing this? Don't you understand? We don't like doing this, and it'll just start chitter chattering. And it's just really important to quiet the brain down and make sure that the soul starts to become the master of the brain, not let the brain become the master. And once you can accomplish that with one thing and you
Hmm.
see that succeed, then you start to get this empowerment, like, wow, okay, I did that. Now I can do something else. What's next? And that's when you start taking over your life and
Hmm.
you start putting in programs you actually want to run. So,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think there is a saying, right, that says, um, "You're the hardest to fool." The hardest thing is not to fool yourself, and you're the easiest to fool,
mm,
right?
hardest things to
Like
do.
people convince themselves of things that they're not.
It's so true. And not only do they do that, but let's say a gal likes a guy and the guy hasn't called her for 3 days. They
Yes.
create storylines. They don't even know
Yeah.
why he hasn't called. Who knows?
Hmm.
Maybe he's in the hospital. Maybe he
Yeah.
got sick. But they start to create self-doubt storylines. Oh, he don't like me. Oh my goodness, this and that. And oh, the last boyfriend thought this, and I'll bet he's thinking that. And they
Hmm.
start to create this storyline. Our brains are way too active on us, and we really got to just start to slow them down. And we're a human
Hmm.
being, not a human doing. We got to just be for a little bit and just allow the
Yeah.
time to, to just be there. And then finally he
Hmm.
might call and he might say, "Hey, I got caught up." And you created all that fear and doubt for nothing. And you
Yes.
literally have sent all those messages out to the universe saying, "Guys don't like me. This happens or that happens."
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Because I read somewhere that a typical healthy brain thinks about 70,000 thoughts a day.
I believe it.
Um, so the trick is to slow it down
Mm.
so that it puts more energy towards making those decisions. Meaning, you need to bring it down from 70,000 to probably 50,000, right? Or, lesser than 70,000,
Definitely.
so that it puts the spare energy more into, giving you the clarity of mind, right?
You know, one interesting exercise I heard was someone, I think it was RGJ Spina. He wrote a book on, he writes a lot about the mind. He took a journal and everywhere he went he did it for like a few weeks. Everywhere he went, he started being very the watcher of his thoughts, very conscious of his thoughts. If he'd walk in a
Hmm.
bathroom, he'd look in the mirror, He'd ask himself, why am I doing this? He'd brush his hair. Why am I brushing my hair? Am I doing it because it's just what I do every day when I walk in the bathroom? Or, so he started to really watch his thoughts and his doing and how he thought about himself and how he thought about others. And it's very eye-opening to start to become very conscious of your thoughts.
Hmm.
And it's actually it helps you to heal because you start realizing how many thoughts you have about yourself or about other
Hmm.
people. You start to really understand yourself better, and you can start catching the negative thoughts towards yourself or others, and then you could
Hmm.
start also realizing where your positive thoughts are. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, that I feel like that happens because that has happened with me also. um I was reading this book called as Think Like a Psychologist by
mm,
Patrick King.
mhm,
And he talks a lot about conversation being a game, and how it's like social points, right? And when I read that, and whenever I used to talk to somebody in a very general setting, right, my brain by default would switch into analysis mode, right, where I spoke less, because that's what that particular book says, that you have got to score lesser points in a social setting, and let other people score more, meaning talk more, so that they feel they are inclined to talk to you,
mhm,
right? And I just felt like, um, being an observer of my own brain, right, where you're just observing your brain's making decisions. And for example, if they said, what do you think about x and x, right, or so, and I would sit back and just watch my brain jump through these hoops, right,
right.
to build a particular narrative or a message.
Isn't it that's great. I love that. It's so enlightening to start slowing it down and just
Hmm.
really watching those thoughts and then kind of questioning why you're having those thoughts. Are those really my thoughts? Was I
Yes.
raised with those thoughts? Were those
Hmm.
my parents' thoughts, or were those my community's thoughts or my friends' thoughts? And you really start to know yourself better. It's
Yeah.
very true. And
Hmm.
I I love psychology. I love understanding why we do what we do and why we think the way
Hmm.
we think. And I think that I love the analogy of it's very enlightening to start to see life more as a game
Hmm.
than so serious, because
Yes.
we take it so serious. And when you start to just like lighten up and have some fun with it, it's just always
Hmm.
about balance. If you do something wrong, don't be
Yeah.
so hard on yourself. You can always rework it. This is how powerful the brain is. You can rework
Hmm.
even a conversation you've had at night, so in other words, if you had a conversation, you didn't like what you said to someone, you can go to
Hmm.
bed at night and you can actually redo that conversation energetically, and you'd be so surprised next time you see that person, they won't remember the conversation. If you were able to get into the
Yeah.
feeling of the senses when you did that redo at night, you would have just collapsed time, and it,
Hmm.
it won't be remembered anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing was, thinking that, is this conversation even necessary, right?
Oh.
And and less worse was thinking, um, was it necessary of what I just said about something, right? Like, for example, I said I don't like a particular fruit, right? But my brain would go into those thoughts of why I don't like it, and I'm like, is this really necessary?
I
Of
mean,
all the
if you
Yeah.
if you wanna sit and just chit chat about fruit with someone, then I guess it's fun, but is it necessary? There's very little conversation that's really necessary, which is kind of fun to think
Yeah,
about.
because every person has just finite energy and
Mhm.
time. So, you know gossip is fun for some time, right? And after some time it starts to take its toll, right? Because Gossip tends to bring out the worst in people when they talk about something or someone.
When I started understanding the power of the brain and the impressions that our brain is a receptor and everything we think and say is literally sending out brain signals like electricity out
Mhm.
into the universe, and I started to understand the power behind those words. That was one of the number one things I was real big in. I didn't see it as gossip. I saw it
Mhm.
as I cared about these people, and so I'm talking about their problems with a friend or with a family member because I care so much, you know. But then once I woke up and understood how powerful that conversation, when you start getting two brains together talking about it, I started just saying to people, I don't do that anymore. I literally started walking away from gossip because
Yeah.
you got to be real careful. You know, our
Mhm.
words they create, our thoughts create, and we can create experiences to happen to other people
Mhm.
if that's something, if we're starting to create this storyline around it and
Mhm.
gossiping about something we really don't know about. Only the person living it really knows.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very, you know, I would say, very much used Facebook post that says, if words are not powerful, then there will be no cuss words.
That could be true.
Right.
When you really wanna give it some oomph, huh?
Yeah. How much do you believe in this manifestation and, you know, these things that people say? Like, you need to manifest what you need to be, or all these sort of things.
Well, I I believe we are a balance of understanding the spiritual mystic side of us and the scientific side of us. So I'm not all about the woo woo. I'm not all about, oh, just start manifesting, just start thinking this, because you have to match the heart coherence, your heart's desire, with what you are desiring to create. So this will be a fun place to go. I One of my favorite lecturers is Neville Goddard. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he would go all over the world and lecture. And he talks about the feeling. The feeling is the secret is one of his really strong lectures. That his the base of his message is getting what you desire to create and experience in this life. And if you can get to the end result and feel it in your five senses, then there's no choice but for that to be delivered to you, because once you get into the five senses, you've just had heart coherence, you've had communication with the body. The subconscious mind don't know the difference between actually living it or the body imagining it. And he likens the imagination to God. He says the imagination is the creative God source that we call God. And so he likens the mind, the left brain, to our thinking mind, to the masculine energy, and our subconscious brain to the feminine energy. And so the subconscious doesn't know the difference if you're living it or not living it. So if it gets an impression, it has to create it. So if your mind, if you can think it and get that thought into the body and
Mhm.
the feeling, because these three work together, the subconscious mind, the thinking mind, and the body, they work together. So if you can get all three of those creating together, then I believe in manifestation, if that's what we're calling manifestation. But there's a lot of
Mhm.
other there's just a lot of posts on social media about manifestation and thinking you can just, oh, I'm just going to think I want this and then it will happen. There's science behind that. Just the same as when you charge a battery in a car, you
Mhm.
need both the negative and the positive polarity to create that charge. Our body is energy, and it needs the same. It needs the negative and the positive. And this is everywhere. You can see this in nature. You see this in the sun and the moon. The sun is comparable to the masculine energy. The moon is the feminine energy. It delivers the impression. It's kind of behind the scenes. And so, yeah, so I do believe in manifestation, but
Mm-hmm.
I go real deeper than that.
Got it. Got it. Because here is my take on it, right?
Yeah.
If you want something, right, you plan for it, you put in the work, and just see what happens, right?
Yeah.
Because life doesn't come with any guarantees. And I feel like people who are very positive and they're like, if I manifest, it should happen. Um, they go through their emotions when it doesn't happen because they do not know how to react in terms of they were like it's a sure shot it will happen,
Right.
but you know
Well,
life isn't fair.
let's put it this way. Back to our going and working out. If I wanted to get my body fit, okay, I can't just sit around and manifest that my body get fit. It's not going to happen. We need your analogy. We need a to-do list. We need to get some action behind it, right? So, this is, but if the mind can create a to-do list, just that to-do list won't work either. Your heart has to be in it, because otherwise you'll give up. It's got to take teamwork. You need both. You need the heart and you need the action. So I liken the manifestation more to the subconscious mind, which I also believe is our soul, our heart. So I think if
Mhm.
you, it's like a teamwork. And I actually believe this is what the Bible was talking about. When the Bible talks about, you know, uh, the woman is the slave to the man, or something. I can't remember exactly how it's worded. It's more that the female energy, not a woman per
Mhm.
se, the feminine energy is the creator. That's why she carries the
Mhm.
baby. That's why she has the womb. The male energy is the one who puts the impression on. So if you take that all within you, you have both masculine and feminine energy in you. If the
Mhm.
mind is putting the impression and saying, "Go to the gym, go get fit," it's the feminine energy that needs to put it to put the impression out there, and that is what some people are calling manifestation. But it's crazy to think you can just sit around in a Indian style and
Mhm.
manifest something. You've got to put action to it. So
Okay, so to be counterintuitive to your point, um, do you think that putting your heart is a luxury that can be afforded by only few people?
that doing what? Putting.
Like you said, if we have to do something, right,
Mhm.
it's not only planning from the brain but your heart also has to be there,
Right.
right? Do you think that's a luxury afforded by only few people? Because
Go ahead.
in real world, I mean,
Mhm.
when people are facing shitty situations, they do not have that luxury of choosing what to do,
Hmm.
and they just have to do it. They just have to get it done.
Yeah, that's a deep, deep question. I like it. Um, I think we all have the empowerment within us to
Mm-hmm.
get to our heart's energy. However, I think, like, now I'll bring in my accident. I'm laying in
Mm-hmm.
bed. I'm now reading, barely able to do anything. My whole life has done a 180. The only time I get out is to go to doctor's appointments. I call that a shitty situation I'm in. So coming from, it's like, what do I do? Doctors gave me, you can amputate the leg or you can live with the pain. They gave me a third option. You can go to another country and they can reset your brain, and you may not remember who you are. And I didn't like any of the options. And so here I am on all this medication because the pain was extremely high. And so from that place, what do you do? How do you reach in and grab your empowerment? Is kind of how I hear that question, you know. Everybody has their own shitty place they're in. How do you do that? And that, I would say, is that everybody can go within. Everybody can. They even a person in the worst jail cell can sit down and just sit there and quiet the mind down, quiet the thinking, quiet the hamster wheel. Go do this, go do that, and just drop into the heart. 15 minutes at first. 15 minutes will do wonders. And it's in that stillness that you start to clear up all the clutter in that cord to a higher power where ideas the brain can't think about. The brain only remembers ideas you've done in the past. It doesn't have the ability to think of something you've never done before. That has to come from the subconscious mind. That is where 90% of our memories are stored. Those who believe in past lives believe that's where that memory is stored. Those who've become masterful musicians at a very young age, they've tapped into that right brain, that subconscious mind. So you're trying through that quiet, still moment, you're trying to tap in to some higher power. So for me, when I tapped into that higher power and said, take me or heal me, two things happened that I give credit. Nothing I did. It's nothing my brain could have thought up. I didn't even know about these two things. But within a very short time, my son and his wife had went hiking in the Dolomites in Italy, and they took a drone and they created like a 45-minute YouTube video and just sent it to me. And then the second thing that happened is I had an old friend that I hadn't spoke to since my accident call me out of the blue. Hey, I've just been thinking about you. I thought I'd give you a call, see how you're doing. And when she did, I told her about my accident, and she said, my aunt just barely cured cancer through energy healing. Have you ever thought of trying energy healing? I'm like, hell no. Bring it. I'll try anything right now. Give me her name and number. And so what I started doing accidentally, because I didn't know at the time until later, and I unwound how this happened. I started watching that video my son sent me, and I started imagining myself out there hiking the Dolomites. And I got very entranced by it, and I kept watching it. I'd tap into it, became my happy time. So I'm accidentally visualizing, using visualization. And then I reached out to this therapist and I started doing energy healing. I did those two things simultaneously, pretty much. 3 months later, healed, 100% healed. 3 months later, I'm hiking. I lived out on 20 acres. I'm hiking in this neighborhood of acreage. And I am so elated to be out walking again and hiking again that I'm doing it 3-4 times a day. And then my sons and I decided to go to Italy my son lived in Italy. So we decided to go see him in June, and we went and had this nice little vacation. And then my son, the one who he lived in Germany at the time, he left and he went back home to Germany. And I was leaving in a couple of nights, my flight. When I went to check in for my flight, I went to check in. It wouldn't work. I went to my son. I said, hey, I can't check in for my flight. Something's wrong. Will you help me? He's the tech guru. And turned out the entire airline canceled all their flights. My flight from Paris to San Francisco at the time, it's completely canceled. No other flight. Well, I bought these tickets way in advance. So to buy a last minute ticket was very expensive. So this gave me the thought, I'm enjoying myself out here. Everybody's going back to work. The family little get-together's over. I'm just gonna chill here for a few weeks and buy a cheaper ticket and just stay out here a little longer. So then me staying a couple more weeks gives my son an idea, because this was the very son who sent me the video. He took a few days off work, surprised me, brought home tickets to go hike the Dolomites. So within 8 months of me being in an electric scooter and couldn't walk more than 10 steps, I am out hiking the very Dolomites that I visualized myself hiking. So,
Hmm.
in answer to your question with telling that story, my message, that's like the base of my message, is every human being has that power in them. No matter what their state is, they can sit and go within and start to declutter that communication with a higher power. And when that cord declutters, you got to stick with it. You can't just say one day, "Oh my gosh, that was terrible. I didn't get anything." No, you just got to keep doing it. You just keep doing it. And pretty soon, what happens is there is an energy where there's this telepathic communication that happens, where my son just automatically thinks, I'm going to go ahead and use my drone. I'm going to videotape this. Mom will love it. And my friend says, "Wow, I haven't talked to Tammy in a long time. I wonder how she's doing." Well, there is a higher power that knows her aunt just healed of cancer, and that these two actions were going to be my recipe to my healing. And everybody's is different. Everybody's recipe is different. But I can guarantee, if a person will just drop in and go into a higher, into just go within, they can tap in to that soul path that they have for themselves, and allow that gestation period, that time, for those little miracles to start to happen and start to just drop into their external world.
Got it. Do you, because you mentioned energy healing, right?
Hmm.
Um, do you think it was more of a placebo,
Ooh, I like that question.
right? Because there has not been credited study that says it works, right?
Put it this way, I think everybody has their own placebo. Yeah. So
Yeah,
in
definitely.
some ways, I do think it's a placebo, but I also will say that there is so much to be said. What energy healing is, if you really just want to simplify it, energy healing is forgiveness. It's forgiving yourself for past mistakes that you feel you made, and it's forgiving others for wrongs they did to you, that you held against them, because that's what trapped energy is. Trapped
Mhm.
energy is anger. The same as, I'll tell you this, the same as, if you made me angry right now, I could get a physical stomach ache
Mhm.
from that anger, from that emotion. That's an energy that's going in my body. My body's absorbing that energy. So I can energetically just release that anger and say, I don't want to be angry. Why do I want to be angry to GD? I don't want to be angry. He didn't mean
Mhm.
that. I'm just going to release that. And then I can get rid of that, what dis-ease. Our body's not at ease. You can get rid of it. And in that you can heal.
Okay, so do you think, I'm being pretty negative here?
No.
Do you think that energy healing is more of just psychological manipulation of a human brain than actual science,
I think
right?
every
Because you're just tricking your brain into thinking that this has to work and this has to work in a certain way.
That's just going back to, the argument of science, or is it science or spirituality? Which one? It's all a balance. To me, it's a balance. It's not one or the other. Is it tricking the brain? No, but is the brain involved? Sure. So in some ways,
Okay,
yes.
so
Go
sorry
ahead.
to interrupt
No, go
you.
ahead.
So I'm very sorry to interrupt you. Um, you see, if it's my opinion, it's an opinion of one person, of course. It's like psychological, diseases or cures, right, are studied in mass, right? Like psychologists do study, and then they publish a paper saying, okay, this is how something works, right?
Mhm.
And they do agree that it's more or less just manipulation of brain, because brain is rather pretty stupid. As I said, it's easy to fool. um, but when it comes to energy healing, right, I don't think that there has been any study that proves like it's not tricking the brain, right? It's not like, I would say, an alternative way of psychology, right? Because you're just working on emotions, and emotions do stem from brain, right?
I think both things you're saying are correct. So in some ways you are tricking the brain. Isn't that whole thing I said about sitting down and going within and quieting the brain? Aren't we tricking the brain? I mean, one of the things I teach my clients.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, because tricking my brain into thinking something else and asking my brain to slow down are two different things. I feel like it's like a difference between meditation and, like, trance, or mass manipulation that people do in marketing, right? That's just manipulation of brain. But when you meditate, you're just asking your body and brain to, you know slow down and ease. So you're not tricking your brain into thinking something else, but rather you're just asking it to slow down.
So yes, but so I'm going to just, for sake of the conversation, we have brain waves, we have frequencies. So when you meditate, you are shifting into a brain wave that you are moving into the right brain and out of the left brain. So the thinking brain that I think you're talking about tricking, because that's the one we want to trick, because it's the one that wants to think of all the solutions. It's in that brainwave is when we are right now. We are in that brainwave when we are doing action. But when we sleep, we're in a particular brainwave. When we are hypnotized, we're in a particular brainwave. When we meditate, we're in a particular brainwave. So you are moving in to a frequency where it's almost like you're changing the channel into a frequency where now you have shifted in to a different part of the brain. We don't just have one brain.
Yeah, but that's not manipulation, right? Whereas I feel like, and it's my, again, it's my personal
Mhm.
opinion, that these, like, I don't want to call out people, but like energy healing and, reiki and, all these things, I feel like it's just manipulation of brain, because you are guiding somebody else's thoughts process in a different way to make them believe of something that doesn't exist. That's what marketing also does,
But
right? That's why marketing works, because marketing is active manipulation of people's, thought process.
well, hmm, I
Okay,
don't
okay.
know. I don't
Because you're
necessarily.
thinking,
What's that?
because you're thinking, right? Let me just give an example.
Uh-huh. Oh, please do. Yeah.
um, do we actually need a refrigerator in the house? No, to be honest, right? If we plan our food better, we don't need refrigerators, right? But marketing convinced us that it is necessary, right? A necessary appliance that you require in your house. And today, a child, who is just born, also knows that refrigeration is like part of survival, right? And that's just mass manipulation of people from a particular industry for years, right? Now, when people talk about energies, and I'm not saying it's a truth or lie, because I do not know,
Mhm.
right? I am not
Oh, I love
evolved
this
enough to
conversation.
understand
So yeah,
those.
I love it.
So I'm not evolved enough to understand that, but my point of view is, because I'm a marketer, right? So
Hmm.
I understand, people manipulate people all the time,
Right.
right? That's how snake oil salesmen were born, right? Out of manipulating people. Now, if energy cannot be proven in a study, right, like which can be conducted on mass, um, my question is like, then is it really a healing process, or is it just manipulation, like placebo, just convincing someone of something that doesn't exist?
Well, I would answer that there are thousands of people who have been healed through energy healing. Thousands. There's testimonials out there everywhere. So
Yeah, but it's not a
now,
study, right?
what's that?
It's not a study, right? Like testimonial is different from
Dr.
an actual
Jody
scientific
Dr.
study.
Joe Dispenza has a huge study out. He's even got scans of the brain, what happens when they're doing it. However, let me just say this. This is why these two, I said the visualization has to come with it, because in some ways, I mean, like, I hear your point, and I actually agree with your point in some ways. Everyone has their own vehicle to healing. So for someone who, like for me, I'd already been to all the doctors. So the doctors, you'd say, is the science and the studies and everything. Well, they were coming at it from a scientifical, studied point of view. You're not going to heal. You're just going to be in this wheelchair. There's no hope. So for me, it'd be very hard to convince someone like me, even though there's no study out there for me. Whoever was in my circle at that time and saw me go from a wheelchair to out hiking, they're like, that happened. And even me, I didn't know what happened. I'm like, how did this happen? So I started reading. Matter of fact, We Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza is one of my books, one of the first books I read, understanding that we have the placebo inside of us. We have that ability. Once we start to understand that we can communicate to our body, our thoughts, our brain is connected to our body, and so our thoughts are connected to those cells. We tell our body, it's because we tell our body, I'm sick, I'm this, I'm that. We can actually end up being sick because we worry about being sick, or we can end up being healed because we think about, because we're starting to feel healed. So
Okay.
mhm,
I think I got your point, right? Let me ask you this. I think you're aware, like there are placebo medicines that exist. Like
mhm,
it's just like multivitamins, but doctors prescribe it to a person who feels they're having something when nothing exists, right?
right.
Now, those medicines popularly work every time because a person thinks they are getting healed by this particular medication, right? And if all of this energy healing and all this stuff ends up being a placebo, right, then why don't we just go into a hypnotic state and let a person just manipulate our brain freely? Why do we have to insist that these are medical alternatives, right? Because it's very clear that there has been no study in terms of mass application, right? Because all energy healing is different from person to person, right?
Because it's a faith-based. Mhm. It's back to
Yeah,
the
but
placebo. Mhm.
there is no set methodology that works on a group of people, right? Because okay, to give a better example, right?
Mhm.
um, like if 10 people had fever, right, and you gave them fever medicine, right, 8 out of 10 people would heal from that particular disease from the same medication,
Correct, because there's a
right?
collective of believing that. Yes,
Mhm.
it's ingrained in us to believe that will. Mhm.
Right, but if 10 people going through a disease were given the same energy healing, right, it would not work, right? because it's not,
Well, it might work on
how do I
it might
put
work
it?
on some of them, but it wouldn't work on all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
It would not work as efficient as the medicine.
True, because we are kind of mind controlled in a way to believe in the medicine more than we are to believe that we can self heal.
No, but also the fact that medicine also works.
It's true, but you could give an argument for both. You could say it works
I
because
don't think so. I don't, because medicine, you can prove medicine on any particular standard that you want, right? For example, you know, drugs go through animal testing, right?
Mhm.
Um, can energy healing also go through animal testing? I don't think so, because animals don't have the capability of thinking like us, right?
Right.
They're just not evolved, so
Mhm.
it would not work. So I feel like medicine works because it works, because it's coming from a place where uh, it's cellular level of healing.
Mhm.
Whereas energy healing, I'm not saying energy healing doesn't work, but what I'm saying is it's more or less just a trick. It's like a magician's trick, right? Where you know a card changes or whatever, any
You know,
magician's trick.
I think I would wrap it up this way. I agree with you on some points, but I think some people who are find themselves sick and medicine isn't working. Okay. That program of medicine or whatever, even if it's the medicine in, the ingredients in the medicine, it's not working. We can be sick because of our trauma. We can be sick because of our anger, because we're sad, because we're heartbroken, because we're frustrated, because life just sucks, and we can make ourselves so sick. And then we just lay in bed and we don't get up and we are depressed. So for that person, energy healing is going to work because it is a form of counseling and psychology. It's, well, at least the kind I do, but I mean,
Exactly.
I don't do Reiki, but anyway, I mean, but
No, actually, sorry, that's exactly my point.
mhm.
It's just an alternative way of psychology, but people who do that as a profession never agree to it. They're like, no, this is a proper channel of medicine.
Well,
And I feel like that's kind of misguiding people, right? It's giving false hope, because then it's like, okay, like, I don't want to take. I've seen this, in real life, where people like, what that person said, so I'll not take medicines.
oh, I don't
Like,
think I don't think people should discount medicines or no.
yeah,
I think, you know, um I,
that's what I think I'm trying to portray to my audience, or anybody who's listening to this, that you know like, all these alternative ways are not medicine, right? They might help you in the journey, but they are not the particular way or transport that you would take, when you want to heal yourself.
well, like, my mom, she had cancer, and I was an energy healer. Okay, and she needed surgery. I would never tell her, "Oh, just go do energy healing. You don't go do surgery. Don't go mind." No,
Yeah.
but if she can, while she's having that surgery, if she can start to up her frequency and
Hmm.
release trauma.
Hmm.
She didn't have to have, that's what I worked on with her. She didn't need to call 10 people and hear what those 10 people talk to 10 people and all their experiences they had with cancer. You could collect so much data that you have
Hmm.
yourself sick. No, just go follow the doctor's advice, but start to change those
Hmm.
programs in your brain. Start to change if you are worried or in these lower emotions. Start to change the
Hmm.
frequency in your body and start to shift that. During this
Hmm.
time, she didn't need chemo. She didn't need anything else. Once she had that, she started to heal. So when she goes back to these doctors, she'll say, you helped me heal, but so did my daughter. So, that's
Hmm.
kind of a good example of kind of working both together. So I would never, ever encourage people to just say, oh, let's just do energy healing. I'm not going to take my medicine. I'm not going to do this. Now, I did get off all my pain medicines and I was on a myriad of medicines. I was on so much medication,
Hmm.
but it was because I started to change within and I started to
Hmm.
feel, I don't think I need that.
Yeah.
So, I always come back to balance. I always do. I think you can also sit and have an argument about, you get atheists and Christians. Well, what about these miracles? These miracles have happened, you can't explain them. Science
Yeah.
can't explain it. So it's always balancing the two. And quantum physics is starting to catch up with understanding that. Quantum physics is,
Hmm.
is starting to really catch up to that
Yeah,
balance.
definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah, because atheists are not from Earth, I feel like. They live in they are very similar to flat earthers, right? Because they take evidence based science to a next level, right? And one of the most interesting points that atheists put up is, science keep proving itself wrong, right? Like, we said something, but it turned out to be something else, right? But their typical argument is religion, doesn't prove itself wrong again and again,
Say
right?
that again. Religion, what?
Yeah, like science proves itself wrong over and over again over the time, right? Because science is
Okay.
evolving.
Hmm.
But they say religion is not evolving because it cannot prove itself wrong.
Well, I would say that's because we're.
So
Go ahead. Hmm.
yeah, so I feel like it's like looking at a 30-year-old person's brain and thinking, why is this brain not growing? And looking at a 10-year-old and saying, this brain is growing. So it's like it's probably evolved science is what I feel like when it comes to religion. Of course, people have fucked up every religion known to man,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Definitely. There's a whole argument for that.
They,
Yeah.
yeah, they have given their own opinion that was not needed and fucked up an entire religion. That happens,
Hmm.
right? But the religion by core itself, right, is different. So yeah, I feel that's a whole different conversation, as you said. But yeah, coming back to energy healing, right? I feel like if medications are not working, and if your physicist is not able to gauge that, okay, for this particular person, medication is not working, maybe we went through the placebo way. I feel like that's a failure at a medical level, because even in Western medicine, fake medicines do exist, fake treatments also do exist.
I'm gonna give you a metaphor here to
Hmm.
to show my a little bit of disagreement with that, and that is if you take a river, the river's just it's flowing. It's got no rocks, no twigs, no nothing. It's flowing. And then you have a bunch of kids. You got 30 kids, and they all come bring a rock, a big rock, and they throw it in the river. Okay. As that water tries to keep flowing, it's going to start getting trapped under the rocks, on the sides of the rocks. It's going to have to maneuver around. You come back 10, 15, 20 years later, those rocks still there. And somebody decides, I'm going to clear out those rocks because I like that river flowing. Okay. So they clear out the rocks. When you pick up those rocks, they're going to have moss and gunk and all kinds of stuff underneath them because the water's gotten trapped under them and on the sides of them as it's tried to keep flowing. Okay. Those rocks in this metaphor are energy blocks. It's that when you get angry, you get that stomach ache. It's that energy that blocks. Our bodies are over 70% water. We are vessels. So as the energy and water is moving in our body and we have energy blocks in them, then that water is trying to go through our chakras, our wheels in the body, our the channels, and it's blocking around that energy, causing that moss and gunk, which we call dis-ease. Our body is not at ease. the water is not flowing well. This is why we feel lethargic. This is why we don't want to get up in the morning. This is why we get, we're not, a person who has high energy is usually very active and moving and excited about life. And you can tell a total difference. So when you start to release some of that, let the baggage go, then you start to feel this flow again in life, and you start to feel a little bit of excitement for life again, and you start to do things you weren't doing before. And maybe I'll just get up and cook something today instead of lay in bed and watch TV. Maybe I'll go do something I'm passionate about. Maybe I'll go paint a picture. You start to move in this direction of being more passionate about life, because you don't have those blocks anymore there. So that's the metaphor that I'd give to it. And I would
Got it.
say that someone who, like myself, who couldn't heal from doctors and medicine, they are sick because of all the weight they've been carrying for years and years and years, everything they've just stuffed down. I don't want to feel the anger. I don't want to feel the frustration. I don't want the heartache. I'm just going to stuff it down and quit feeling it. So letting it go ends up healing them. And so, yes, it becomes their placebo.
Got it. Okay, whenever this conversation comes up of emotions and or anything that's internal, right? um, people people tend to say, it's for the weak people. So what's your take on it when people say, because of course there are strong people and there are weaker people, and I feel like if we say there are, it's not true, then we're not talking about reality. But what's your opinion on, let's say, when people say, it's just it's just for weaker people?
I actually like that question because, in a way, it's actually kind of true. And now I'm labeling myself as I was a weak person, because I, I think
The
people,
irony.
I think people who shove their emotions down and don't feel their emotions, they go through life being what everybody else wants them to be. And so they don't fill their own cup. What you would call in this analogy a strong person is somebody who keeps real good boundaries and says,
Hmm.
no, I'm not going to do that today. I go work out, or I go do this. And they keep their boundaries and they keep filling their cup and serving themselves. And someone who um, is, which I think a stronger amount of women do energy healing,
Hmm.
there's someone who gives to children, gives to their family, gives, they're always giving to others of their energy, and they're never filling their own cup, which means they have to be shoving those emotions down. So I guess I'm not wild about the word weak. I would just call that someone who has not set real good boundaries and
Hmm.
practiced, filling their own cup, or staying in their passionate state of who they are.
So would you call those people emotionally unfit, like they're not fit in terms of physical health or in mental health?
Well, I would say that they definitely, emotions are driving them. Tr-
Hmm.
Lower trapped emotions are driving them, yes, and creating their programs and how they're acting. So therefore, they just don't do anything. Whether we'd call that emotionally unfit, they're still fit. They still can
Hmm.
give love. They still can find
Yeah.
ways to be a good human being, but maybe they're emotionally unfit for themselves. I think they don't give to themselves, you know?
Got it. So, okay, what's your reaction when people attribute their bad behavior to trauma?
What's my reaction? Did you say?
Yeah,
What's
what's your kind of thought process when people attribute, their bad behaviors,
Mhm,
right, as trauma? Because in this generation we have so much of that.
mhm.
I'm addicted to something and something because of this particular thing. It's not my fault.
Right. I think that we all, at some point, are acting from our trauma. Until I don't think that otherwise you'd just be a perfect person. We all are going to have some kind of trauma that causes us to react to situations. It's different for everybody. I mean, when someone yells at me, I don't get angry. But I have friends or acquaintances, I know people who get triggered. Someone yells at them and bam, you trigger something. So they're acting from a trauma based reaction at that point. So, whether they were just a kid and always got yelled at, or whether they, had a teacher who, so they had people who overpowered them, and they feel they have to rise up to show how powerful they are, and I'm going to fight that. Whereas myself, I don't feel that need. However, I have other areas that I act from my trauma. So, as far as my thought process on them doing that, again, this is moving to the mind now. So say you have a kid, and his teachers are always overpowering him, because we have those kids who don't fit in the box, who can't sit at school. They're maybe a troubled kid, and so the teachers are always yelling at them, and they don't feel an empowerment around authority figures. Their mind has created a program that runs in their brain that when they get around authority figures and those authority figures start to trigger them, they're going to act from that program. And that's the communication between the brain and the body. And so they'll just react.
Sorry to interrupt
Mhm,
you. In that particular example that you just gave,
mhm.
it would also be because it would also be more natural when because people do have problem with authority, whether they have trauma or not, right? But my original question rather was, people say I am asshole, to the society, or I'm a menace to the society because of my trauma. Like I don't respect people because of my trauma. It's like people are labeling their attributing their bad behavior to trauma, saying so and so happened with me, so this is my trauma.
It's back to what I said earlier. You can only know what's in you. You can't, just because you are reacting because of your trauma doesn't mean another person is reacting because of their trauma. They might be reacting because that's just
They
who
just
they want
react.
to be. They're authentically being themselves,
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be a perfect world if we all just worried about ourselves? Think about
Oh,
it. If we all just worried about our own little, that our own little energy bubble. Have you ever seen those little balls? You have those balls, and that people can
yeah.
roll around and bump into each other. If we all had just realized we have our own little energy bubble around us, and just worry about yourself. Quit worrying about someone else. Every time you think something about someone else, point the finger back at you, and
Mhm.
what's wrong with you? Why do you care? Why are you reacting because how that person acts? It has nothing to do with you, you know? Uh, So that there is definitely a problem. If you're driving down the
Mhm.
highway and you see, you know, 10 people standing and having a fight, are you going to pull the car off and go join because it triggered you? Walk away. Just mind your own business.
Yeah.
Worry about
I mean,
you.
someone might if they had a bad day at the work.
There are people who look for that. Yeah, I agree. There are people who would. I was
Yeah.
really being kind of serious when I said that. But should
Yeah.
they? No, just keep rolling along and go do what you love to do. So,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And Tammy, if people want to, get in touch with you, right?
mhm.
How do they do that?
Well, there's a few ways. One is I have a website,
Hmm.
tammy-brunson.com, and all my
Hmm.
social media is linked on there. But all my social media on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, I call it Cracks in the Illusion, because
Hmm.
I do believe we live in an illusionary world, that we aren't self empowered. So it's
Yeah,
starting to crack through that illusion that we actually can be in charge of our own energy bubble. And so um, that's a way they can, and they can get in touch with me with just simple questions. I have a free 20-minute discovery call. Everybody requires a different way of help. I offer a myriad of help. It's not just energy healing. I help with changing those programs in the brain, and I also help with just boot camps to get your energy back up and get doing something you just really feel passionate about doing. So
got it. And tell me, why should people have life coaches?
I think a person would reach out to a life coach because they really want to make a transformation. They want to transform from one reality to another. They want to, I call it jumping a timeline. You want to evolve a little quicker into a timeline. We loop in our problems in life year after year after year. If you just want to quit looping, quit making the same decisions, whether it's that you just keep dating someone who is a jerk to you because you don't have self-love, or whether it's because you just keep overeating because you're just that's the way you solve your problems at night, or whatever it is. You can really truly start to shift, allow those neurons to create a different network for you, a different program. And a life coach can help assist you with tools on a daily basis that will help and guide you. Now, they can also, if you're a very self-motivated person, a lot of that stuff, I drop videos on my social media. You can just go watch some videos and you can learn some of those tools just simply through finding a few gurus that you resonate with and start grabbing onto those tools. I'm here to talk to the wall. I mean, whoever wants to listen, whoever's out there saying,
Hmm.
that's me, I want to transform, eh,
Hmm.
give a call, do the free 20-minute call. I'm not going to talk you into anything. I only want to work with somebody who really has the faith in it and wants to work in it,
Hmm.
so I'll point you the right direction. And that may just be just listening to a few YouTube videos or a few little tips. But
Hmm.
if it's more than that, then I'll be honest about that too.
Got it. Thank you so much for that clarification. And yeah, thank you so much for being here and taking your time. Um,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you so much for being here once again.
I like the tough questions. Bring it.
Thank you.
So, it was
Yeah,
good. It was good.
yeah, because I feel like it's my duty to present the
Mhm.
negative side of it,
I like
right?
it.
Yeah, in other terms, it's my work to poke the bear and see what happens.
And I really respect that. I really do. And I congratulate you for
Hmm.
doing that, because you're
Thank you.
asking the questions that some could be listening and thinking. And if they don't get
Yeah,
an opportunity to hear both sides, and that's why I
yeah.
stayed kind of firm on my side, because
Hmm.
I have my experience, you have your
Yes,
experience. And as a whole of humanity, we make one big puzzle and we all have our own little puzzle pieces. Not every
definitely.
person is going to find the answers to their puzzle piece through me. They might need
Yeah.
your more logical point of view. And I
Hmm.
love that give that, push and pull.
Thank you so much for that compliment. Anyways, guys, to my audience, this is the end of the episode. If you have enjoyed it, just let us know. I don't know how. Maybe send a pigeon with the letter. And all of Tammy's social media and website link will be in the description. So just go there and see what she has to offer. And if you liked what you heard today, maybe just go and take a free session with her. And until next episode, thank you and take care.